Welcome back, boxing fans, to another night of late night talk with Sean on boxing and Lily. So it seems that Tank Davis once again has ducked the opportunity to fight a Matchroom card or on a Matchroom card against potentially Matchroom opponents. This is not the first time, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time that this has happened. Obviously, he was offered $7 million to fight a unification fight back at 130 pounds against Tevin Farmer, but ended up walking away from that payday, which inevitably led the PBC to push him towards pay-per-view. Obviously, that was the only way they could potentially pay him the kind of money that Matchroom and Eddie Hearn had offered him to fight Tevin Farmer, a fight he should have taken for unification, but of course he didn't, and didn't make a counter offer and didn't do anything to try to make that fight, which was disappointing because in truth that would have been an easy unification fight for him, as we saw when Jojo Diaz went on to beat Tevin Farmer. Obviously from that time PBC has mainly put him on pay-per-view cards, most of which I'm sure have paid him decently, but none of them have been super fights, except for, of course, the Ryan Garcia fight, which most of us were saying would be a big fight, not because Ryan Garcia was a superstar, but because both of them had a great back and forth on social media, and of course both of them had presence on social media, which meant a lot of people were following both of them, and there was a big build-up for that fight, and it worked out exactly the way most of us thought it would. Big pay-per-view, probably the biggest of last year. Let's just put this over here for a second. And based on that fight, which obviously did great numbers and both guys got paid very well, don't take you in an awkward position. What's he going to do next? Is he going to fight some lesser name opponent for far less money? Because PBC couldn't justify paying him $30 million or more to fight one of the other kind of guys they have on their platform. So to make that kind of money, you're obviously going to have to fight somebody with name recognition, or potentially go and fight Devin Haney in Saudi Arabia, where the Saudis are more than eager to get you over there and pay you a large amount of money. But yet, once again, it looks like that's not going to happen, since he just walked away from, once again, another offer from Matchroom. And well, this offer to me didn't make much sense. I didn't really see the point of Tank Davis moving up to 147 pounds to take on Conor Benn, when he was discussing the fact that he didn't want to go to 140 to fight Devin Haney, even though obviously styles do make fights. Conor Benn is a much more of an aggressive come forward fighter, not nearly as skilled, and obviously not as difficult an opponent, but obviously physically he's big, a hard puncher, and a naturally bigger fighter than Tank Davis. So the fact that you're ducking a 140-pound fight with Devin Haney, specifically in Saudi Arabia, which potentially could pay you the kind of money that you're looking for, to talk or even think about contemplating a fight with Conor Benn, which makes no sense at all to me, but you know, I'm not the one who's promoting these fights and trying to make them, am I? For you guys, boxing fans, which of those two fights makes more sense to you, and which of these would you like to see more? Obviously, I do see the interest in a Conor Benn fight. He's kind of like a version of Rolly Romero, right? A guy who is big, physical, and dangerous, but a guy that Tank Davis is obviously faster than, and obviously more skilled than. So in truth, he should be able to beat him, and one would think quite handily. So now the question is, now that he walked away from another deal with Matchroom, what's next? What's he going to do now? Who's he going to fight? He's going to fight more in-house PBC opponents, so Frank Martin. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love a Frank Martin Tank Davis fight, but how much money is the PBC going to pay Tank Davis to fight Frank Martin. I mean, if he got $10 million, they would probably have to pay Frank Martin about $1 million, and maybe they would make a profit, you know, maybe. But the point is, you're really pushing things when you get to that kind of premium price to fight an opponent that nobody is really a big fan of and doesn't have much of a fan base, like Frank Martin. If you're going to fight another guy, like say the winner of Rolly Romero and Isaac Cruz, to become essentially a three-weight world champion, legitimately this time, for an opponent that you already fought that nobody was too interested in seeing you fight at 135 pounds. So what would make it more interesting to see it at 140? Personally, I wouldn't be interested because we've seen it, been there, done that. At this point, it'd be much more interesting to see him in with a different opponent, somebody new, somebody that we haven't seen him in with, and somebody that brings some different skills into the ring. But what do you think? Who would you like to see Tank Davis face next? And do you think he should cross over to take money from another platform? For me, I don't see the loyalty that guys like him show towards the PBC. Big fights have been made because fighters have wanted to make them. Canelo Alvarez crossed over to the PBC to get the Plant fight for Undisputed. Then, once again, he crossed over to the PBC to make these fights that he's currently involved in with the PBC. Devin Haney crossed over from Matchroom to Top Rank to get his opportunity to face Kambosos for Undisputed. He made that happen, right? Just like Canelo Alvarez made it happen. So the question is, what do you expect Tank Davis to do? Are you happy with him just fighting run-of-the-mill in-house opponents from the PBC and then clapping back and acting as if he's the face of the sport, even though he's not doing anything that anyone asks any other top fighter to do? Ultimately, this is the question you need to ask yourself as a boxing fan. What do you expect fighters to do? If you expect them just to cash out at opportunities against lower level opponents, never truly push themselves, never try to win legitimate titles, never try to unify or fight other world champions, then Tank Davis is your man. And I don't say this because I hate Tank Davis, quite the opposite. I think Tank Davis is one of the most exciting fighters in the sport of boxing and definitely has that kind of charisma, at least in the ring, that can sell and make him the face of the sport. But to do that, you need opponents. Historically, that's always been the case. You're only as good as your opponents, and that's what we're waiting for him. So let me know what you think. Leave it in the comment section below.